Hey everyone, my name is Lillian. I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm going to bring you all of my science fiction favorites from 2021. I think that I'm going to start with YA. In total, I have 14, I think, favorites. I think 14. So I will try to do this faster because I know that the fantasy favorites dragged on for a while. I'm very sorry. Please just prepare yourself right now with a drink or a snack because I can't help kind of gushing about how much I love these books. We're going to start off with YA because I think only two of them are three of them are sequels. Okay, we're starting off with YA anyway. Oh, before I forget though, here's an obligatory shot of all the books that I have here with me now, which is not all 14 as you can tell, so sorry about that. So let's get into YA. The first one, hold on, let me just moment. Okay, the first one is The Ones We're Meant to Find. I am a huge fan of Jones. I love the Descendant of the Crane book, and The Ones We're Meant to Find is the second one. I'm going to refer to the inner flap because there are a lot of things here that are spoiler, and I always get confused about what is revealed and what is not. So, basically, C wakes up on an abandoned island and she's not sure like where she came from or why she's there. And so basically on the island she has an android for company. There's like a shack basically, and I think she's starting to grow her own food because there's no food on the island. And so she knows that she has a sister, but she's trying to escape the island. So that's C's story. Basically though, Casey's story, she is stuck in this giant city. This has a lot to do with climate change and environmentalism, kind of in the future, the environmental impact, and sci-fi. Environmental, sci-fi, ethics, like those three things all mixed together is definitely the vibes of The Ones We're Meant to Find. Anyway, Casey is in the eco-cities, which are the last unpolluted habitats on Earth, and so they're supposed to be a sanctuary for those who are deserving of protection. But when there's all of a sudden a series of man-made disasters which happen on the planet, Casey has to figure out if she can use her science background. She's like a STEM heroine. I'd love to see it. If she can use her science background to help her planet. And even though it didn't really save her sister. That's so many things that I want to talk about, which are spoilers. This is my lovely Owl Crate edition, which is why it's purple. Beautiful. I own all of the editions. I own the Owl Crate, the Barnes & Nobles. I got one signed by Jones Local Indie, and it's just a lot, really. Anyway, so The Ones We're Meant to Find, the two reasons I love it, because I'm going to be more concise. The two reasons I love it. The first one, sisters. Casey and C's sister relationship, even though they are different characters in it, you know, and like it's not like a contemporary maybe where, you know, sisters both live in the same house, right? There's distance between C and Casey, and so even though that exists, Joan is so good at making sure that we understand each sister from their other perspective. So the sister relationship, must read. Second of all, the twists and turns. It just like got me. I am very bad at predicting what happens in a book. I think that makes me a better, you know, it makes the experience better for me. But the twists and turns in this one were seriously shocking. Even now, I'm just like, what is going on? That's just my reaction. I have so many notes in my phone where it's just like, oh my god. That's the entire note. So this is definitely a fan if you love action-packed sci-fi, but also, as I said, the intersections between environmentalism and ethics and sisters. Must read. The next one I have is Gear Breakers. I just had to get it from my pile. Gear Breakers. I love this sapphic science fiction, my two faves here. So basically, this sci-fi world has these like giant mechanized mechs, basically. These giant robots, they're known as wind-ups, they're also weapons. So, you know, they're mechanized weapons, robots, mechs. Anyway, there's a lot of war and oppression in the world, and there's definitely like Godolia, I think is how you pronounce it. That's kind of the overlord over system basically. And so Eris, she's a gear breaker, and so she's a rebel who specializes in taking down these wind-up machines. And so she finds herself in a Godolia prison. Then Eris meets Sona, and Sona is a wind-up pilot. So it's definitely like an enemy meeting. And so at first, they definitely see each other as enemies, obviously. But soon she discovers that Sona has actually been secretly infiltrated in the wind-up pilot program. So it's like, okay, they start off as enemies, but like they're not really enemies anyway. So basically throughout this, they have to figure out how to kind of, you know, wreak havoc, rebel, do all sorts of fun stuff. Also, the sequel, Godslayer, and also the cover for that one is just like, love it so much. If you really liked Steel Striker, these, and I think Gearbreakers and Steel Striker by Marie Lu, they have very similar vibes, I think, so you definitely have to read them, or vice versa if you like those. Gearbreakers is just, okay, I love the interactions between these two. That is my #1 reason why I love it. Zoe is so good at doing character dynamics and character interactions, character banter, character vulnerability. Both of these people, Sona and Eris, they're just like, I love their characters so much. They flew off the page right at your face. Their inner like struggles with loyalty, with their relationship to Godolia and to Rebellion and to their family and their colleagues and their friends. All of these were so fantastically done. I think the characters have to be my favorite thing about Gearbreakers. But also, secondly, is the world building. The world building is so cool. Like, it definitely was a different kind of vibe or a different take on mechs, because I really love Rebel Soul, which also has mechs, like giant mechanized robots. And I also really loved Rebel Ring, which I think is the first one, if I can't remember. And that also has mechanical, that one is like mechanical dragons. But anyway, Gearbreakers has definitely a different take on these mechanized machines, and also the different classes of mechanized machines. Like, it is just so fascinating to read, and I cannot wait to read about more in the sequel. The next one and the last one before I talk about YA sci-fi sequels is Iron Widow. Ugh, I freaking love Iron Widow. Like, Iron Widow, if I had to think about books that kind of like ripped out my soul and took a piece of my soul with me, one of them has to be Iron Widow. Queer science fiction about like girls trying to just burn the entire system down. This is it. Like, this is so much it. There is queer like romances as well. Romances plural. In this book, it is so fantastic. Let me just do a like summary. Basically, Zechan, she wants to be a concubine pilot. So basically, you know, she's basically she's basically like a battery for also these giant battle alien robot things. Oh, sorry, they're battling aliens. She's also a concubine pilot for these giant robots who, like, actually are very interesting. World building is definitely one of the reasons why I love Iron Widow. But anyway, so basically her plan is to assassinate the male pilot, who is the one who's in control of the controls. She's basically, as the concubine pilot, more or less, as I said, kind of a battery pack, more or less kind of just there for support. But often they die in battles, like very much kind of fodder for the war machines of Iron Widow. So she wants to assassinate the male pilot, but she ends up emerging from these, you know, the ruins, I guess, of the pilot, or not the pilot, the ruins of the machine thing. I don't know. Yeah, the machine thing, the robot, let's just say. And so she's declared an Iron Widow, which is the most feared pilot of them all, and also a female, and also a woman pilot. So, you know. So basically, she has a taste of power, and she has to figure out throughout Iron Widow how to maintain her status, and also know that, like, even though she very much is very powerful, very much a weapon, very much an asset, also very much a liability, very much destroying slash questioning slash, like, it is not great, basically, in this book for women and girls to think that they could be more than just cannon fodder. So basically, even though she's very powerful, she's also very much vulnerable, and have to figure out kind of how to manage that relationship. Definitely a second reason why I loved it. And also, like, the characters in this one is also so great. I loved how queer this is. Just loved it. So those are, I guess, my top 3 reasons why I loved Iron Widow. Need the sequel, like, ASAP. Basically, before I even finished Iron Widow, I knew I needed the sequel. And this is my stunning Illumicrate edition. I love this book so much. Now I want to talk about three sequels, three YA sci-fi sequels. The first one is A War of Swallowed Stars. A War of Swallowed Stars is the latest / last in the Celestial trilogy, which started off with, I can see it up there, A Spark of White Fire, which basically mixes fantasy and sci-fi. It is probably the most speculative of all of the books on this list, at least for the YA sci-fis, because it definitely has gods and goddesses and also sentient spaceships. Oh, well, I mean sentient spaceships is like not, that's more on the sci-fi side. But anyway, it has gods and goddesses and kind of like family, epic family betrayal, political struggle, as mixed as well with like spaceships and, as I said, sentient spaceships and running for your life and space planets, like all of these different things. If you love both of those things, you definitely should check it out. I'm not going to necessarily talk about this plot for War of Swallowed Stars because if you haven't read A War of Swallowed Stars, I don't want to spoil you. So wait, I will actually pick up A Spark of White Fire off of my shelf and just tell you what that is about so that you can figure it out. Basically, it is a fantastic series finale. I think that all three of these series or sequels are series finales in the YA sci-fi category, and they are all fantastic in the way that they stay true to elements that you loved earlier in the series, but also with such development and growth in the characters and the worlds and the plots. Like, it is just, these are all fantastic. But Esme in Spark of White Fire, but also, you know, why you should read this. A Spark of White Fire, she wins a contest of skills which sets off events that trigger an inevitable and unwinnable war that pits her against the family she'd give anything to return to. So it's a universe of capricious gods, dark moons, and kingdoms built on the backs of spaceships. A cursed queen sends her infant daughter away, a jealous uncle steals the throne of Kali from his nephew, and an exiled prince vows to take his crown back. That's all of that in a nutshell, but also, yeah, A Spark of White Fire, A War of Swallowed Stars is just a fantastic sequel after House of Sorrow, and I can't remember the second one, but after that one, I wasn't really sure how this series could get any better, and it did. The next one is, I have to look at my thing, Suns Will Rise. This is the series finale to The Systems Divine, which is Les Mis in space. Very easy to describe. Les Mis is a really complicated book with a lot of characters and a lot of plot. So I can't really do a really good job of explaining it. I actually have my copy of Sky Without Stars, which is the first in the series. As I said earlier, Suns Will Rise. I mean, it is such an undertaking to take up the idea of Les Mis and then inject it into space. Suns Will Rise had amazing rebellion, an amazing world, and just like the world has exploded basically within this entire series in such a fascinating way. I've done interviews with Joanne and Jessica, and you know, we've talked about co-authoring, we've talked about world building as co-authors. Like, it is just so fantastic to see what they've been able to do. Sky Without Stars here, so I mean, it's about Les Mis in space, but I'll just try to give like even this summary has so much in it. A thief, an officer, a guardian, three strangers, one shared destinies. When the last days came, the planet of La Terre promised hope, but 500 years later, it's now a place where an extravagant elite class reigns supreme, where the clouds hide the stars and the poor starve in the streets, where a rebel group long thought dead is resurfacing. So that's kind of like Sky, the series in a nutshell. As I said, though, it's Les Mis in space, so there's a lot of, you know, a lot of rebellion, a lot of characters. I love, actually, in these sequels, they include summaries of each character, basically, and what has happened so far. Like, double thumbs up. I want that more in series. It was fantastic. I was able to get like a very quick snapshot of the character's journey until now. It was so helpful. And then the final one is no surprise to anyone, honestly. It is Journey to the Heart of the Abyss. I keep adding thes and taking away thes. It's Journey to the Heart of the Abyss. This is the sequel to The Light at the Bottom of the World by London Shaw. If you've been around for a while, you will know how much I love The Light at the Bottom of the World. It is just such a fantastic book. Book series about rebellion and censorship and like an information war, essentially, and the characters in it are so fantastic. Let's see. So basically, in the first one, Layla, who is the main character, she was competing in a submarine race to get, you know, any prize. Basically, they were like, oh, if you win the race, you can get whatever prize you want. She wanted to break her dad out of jail because her dad is basically framed for being in jail. Like, we're pretty sure he's not guilty. So that's the premise of the first book, and throughout that, she discovers that the government / the society is not telling everyone everything they need to know. So I think what I love so much about the Journey to the Heart of the Abyss is not only the care that London has done in the world building for like an entire city / world underwater, but also, what I think I love the most about the Journey to the Heart of the Abyss, and also the series in general, is that it really navigates this idea. In sci-fi, I think we look a lot towards the future. And I think what I loved about this one is that so much of this book is about nostalgia for the past, and how that can really bring you back, and how it can stop you from moving forward when you should be moving forward, and how that can kind of, it can kind of trap you in a cage. So I really love that dichotomy between it clearly being set in the sci-fi future where environmental, you know, crises has made us all have to live underwater. So definitely like an environmental sci-fi book, but also this dichotomy between being in that ultra sci-fi setting, but also having people have this nostalgia sickness and having like all of these artifacts from previous times. And it was really interesting to see that juxtaposition, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I love this series. So let's talk about adult sci-fi now. I'm going to end off with adult sci-fi sequels because honestly, half of this list is adult sci-fi sequels. So let's just talk about non-adult sci-fi sequels. The first one is To Be Taught If Fortunate. This was a gift from Laura from Green Teen Paperbacks. I'll leave Laura's link below. I loved this. I initially thought it was, as Becky Chambers is an auto-buy author. I mean, I struggled even to think about how to describe that. Becky Chambers is an auto-buy author. I have loved everything I've read by Becky Chambers. And To Be Taught If Fortunate is this novella, which is basically the logs or the diary of this person who is talking to, we are not sure, and kind of doing mission status reports. So basically, instead of terraforming planets to sustain human life, explorers of the galaxy transform themselves. At the turn of the 22nd century, scientists make a breakthrough in human spaceflight. Through a revolutionary method known as somaforming, astronauts can survive in hostile environments off Earth using synthetic biological supplements. With the fragile body no longer a limiting factor, human beings are at last able to explore exoplanets long suspected to harbor life. So Ariadne, she is the main character of To Be Taught If Fortunate. She is on a mission to ecologically survey 4 habitable worlds, and she and her fellow crewmates sleep while in transit. As they shift through both form and time, life back on Earth has also changed. Faced with the possibility of returning to a planet that has forgotten those who have left, Ariadne begins to chronicle the wonders and dangers of her journey in the hope that someone back home is listening. This is a novella that I basically reread once I finished it. It has so much in it, like in terms of Easter eggs to earlier, where you're like, oh my god, now I understand why. And so much to do also about, as here, like, kind of like The Light at the Bottom of the World, there's very much the sense of it being super ultra sci-fi, like as I said in all of those different things, they're somaforming, but also in this idea of like, as we keep pushing the boundaries of what we can do, we need to ask 2 questions. Should we be doing this? And also, how does this change who we are as people and who we are as humans, who we are like morally, ethically, but also like, how does this change kind of what it means to be human? If you like those questions, you need to read this, because Becky Chambers is able to navigate that and navigate intense suspense as you kind of see all of these pieces coming together in a novella. It is just pure masterpiece. The next one is First Sister. This was described to me as Handmaid's Tale in space. Let me bring up the synopsis. So it's a trilogy, and also First Sister and Second Rebel, those are both on my 5-star like reads for this, because both of them were fabulous. I had basically no expectations going into First Sister, except I knew that it was Handmaid's Tale in space. But it blew me away. I listened to an audiobook, which I highly recommend. Not only is Farinaz Rishi, who's the author of It All Comes Back to You and I Hope You Get This Message, one of the audiobook readers, it is fantastic to listen to each of these 4 5-ish, I can't remember exactly how many POVs, audiobook narrators read the stories. Like, it makes the experience 100 million times better. It is fantastic. But basically, it's about this religious, there's so many different pieces of it because there are so many different plans. But basically, the first sister, she has, everyone doesn't have any names and no voices. Literally, they are unable to speak. They only use sign language to communicate. First sister has no name and no voice. As a priestess of the sisterhood, she travels the stars along the soldiers of Earth and Mars. So not only is she a kind of revered, not goddess, but like a revered position of power, she's also sleeping with the soldiers. So she's kind of this, like, I wouldn't say concubine, but she's kind of like, it's designed so that, like, soldiers who are burdened from war can come home, enjoy a warm bed, and also be able to say whatever they want to, you know, confess whatever they want to the first sister or to second sisters, third sisters, whatever, and then have them be unable to, like, tell their secrets. I feel like that's kind of the basis for it. But basically, her former captain abandons her, and first sister hopes to be kind of elevated to the first sister status with this new captain on this new ship. She meets Saito Ren, who no one really knows anything about. She's commanded to spy on Saito Ren, but soon they end up falling in love. But also, there is another character. So there's basically the POV, I think, of first sister, Saito Ren, and Leto Val Lucius. And Leto Val Lucius is a soldier of Venus, so not related to those planets. And he was defeated by Saito Ren, and he is looking for his partner, Hiro. Hiro is the one who's disappeared, and Leto learns Hiro's both alive and a traitor, so now he his shot at redemption is to track his former partner down and kill him, which is not gonna go well. So he then discovers recordings that Hiro secretly made, and his own allegiances are put to the test. That's basically what it's about. I loved how much this swept me away. As I said, for First Sister, I had no expectations, and I was immediately like, oh my god, I love Leto, I love Hiro, I love the First Sister, I love Saito Ren, I love all of these characters. Really having it be multiple perspective allows you to get really deep into each of these characters and really understand their loyalties, their conflicting ideas about family, about, you know, what their purpose is. And in the second Rebel, I knew that I loved the First Sister so much. And it still smashed through every, like, expectation that I could have had. And it was such a fabulous sequel. There's definitely no second book syndrome. This one delivered so much action, and it involved and developed the characters in such a fantastic, also heart-wrenching and thrilling and, like, suspenseful way. It did such a fabulous job of being a sequel. I cannot wait for book 3. Like, both 1 and 2 are 4 5-star reads on this favorite sci-fi from 2021. So what does that tell you? The next one that I want to chat about is Light from Uncommon Stars. Oh, this one is just, like, so heartwarming and heart-wrenching and just emotionally tender. Oh, it is so good. Light from Uncommon Stars, how do I describe it? There's a donut shop, there's, like, a galactic spaceship, and there's also a violin prodigy who may have made it, a violin prodigy, comma, and also someone who may have made a deal with, like, a Faustian bargain. There's a lot in Light from Uncommon Stars, and I loved every piece of it. So basically, Shizuka has made a deal with the devil to escape damnation. She must entice 7 other violin prodigies. I don't know why I'm doing 2. 7 other violin prodigies to trade their souls for success. She already has delivered 6, and so she sets her eye on Katrina, who is a young transgender runaway. She basically hears Katrina playing in a park, and she's like, yes, I need you, you're fantastic. But that their story aside, there's also a donut shop where Shizuka meets Lan, who is a retired starship captain, interstellar refugee, and mother of 4. Shizuka doesn't have time for crushes or coffee dates, with her very soul on the line. But Lan's kind smile and eyes, like stars, might just redefine a soul's worth. So it is basically about all 3 of these main characters, Shizuka, Katrina, and Lan, and it just, like, is so fabulous because I love each of them so much. It just, like, has everything I want in a book. I loved Katrina's story, not only how she has to deal with being a transgender runaway, but how she reacts to music and how she relates to music and how much she loves music. Oh, so good. And also Shizuka and her own journey about, you know, delivering 6 other souls, you know, who traded their souls for success, but also her trying to reevaluate how she feels about, like, not mortality, but I feel like once you start living for a while, you start to lose a little bit of that spark and that fragileness of human experiences. And also there are some drawbacks to her bargain with it doesn't say the actual devil. Yeah, it says the devil. To her bargain with the devil that are interesting in this one. Definitely gives you like a picture of Dorian Gray vibe. Love that for this. And also Lan has a lot of things you can't see from the synopsis, but it is so cute. And in the donut shop, oh, Mother of Four as well, like, oh, it is so good. It was like emotionally tender. There's a lot in this book that, in terms of action, in terms of world, you know, in terms of this galactic warfare kind of captain thing. Is that what it said? Retired starship captain. There's a lot to do with that. That definitely brings in the sci-fi, but there's just like so much heart in this book. If you love, what were the comp titles for this? Good Omens meets The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Basically, if you love character-driven stories, but with tons of action, and if you love characters that will like sweep you away, that will tear your heart out in the best way, this is definitely for you. I love it so much. It just is like, I love it so much. I don't really know how to describe it anymore, but I just love it so much. If you want to find like a cozy sci-fi, heart-warming, emotional, tender story, this one here. And the last one before I dive into sequels, which I've already talked a little bit about sequels, but anyway, the last one is Light Years from Home. This is Mike Chen's recent / newest book as the time of filming this, I think. Anyway, Light Years from Home takes place, and it basically revolves around these 3 siblings, and one of the siblings recently comes back from who knows where, basically, and I need to look this up, otherwise I'm gonna end up spoiling this, because that's just what happens. So, Light Years from Home, it takes place, every family has issues, most can't blame them on extraterrestrials. Evie Xiao and her sister Cass aren't on speaking terms. 15 years ago, on a family camping trip, their father and brother disappeared. Their father shows up a couple of days later being like, we were abducted by aliens, but the brother never shows up. So everyone's kind of like, were you abducted by aliens? Basically, he remains missing, but Cass, the sisters, Cass and Evie, react to this in very, very different ways. Cass decides that she needs to handle the fallout from her mother, and she like ends up being she becomes the rock of the family. But Evie is like, okay, aliens, let's run with that, let's figure out what happened. So that basically then Evie's UFO network discovers a new event, and she decides that she needs to investigate. And what? Jacob is back! Jacob is back. He's different, older, stranger, and talks of an intergalactic war. But the tensions between the siblings haven't changed at all. If family is going to come together to help Jacob, then Cass and Evie are going to have to fix their issues, and fast, because the FBI is after Jacob, and if their brother's telling you the truth, probably an entire space armada too. The number one reason I love Light Years from Home were the family dynamics. It was like, it was so fabulous in the way that they are complex, and it like Mike is so is able to balance complex family dynamics and the layers of siblings like in such a fantastic, nuanced way, where it's not, it never feels cookie cutter, it never feels like they're easy way outs. And also, on the other hand, this action storyline where you're also like, is there aliens? Like, do we think that? But also then this intergalactic, you know, all of the things all of the sci-fi elements on this other level, and both of these layers are able to so well combine and interact with each other and like switch from side to side. It is just fabulous how well and seamlessly those are integrated together. Amazing if you love sci-fis that are driven by characters, so I mean also kind of like Life from My Grandma's Stars, but sci-fis that are driven by characters and specifically by family, and specifically that complex way that family can hurt us and disappoint us, but we love them and support us and reject us, like all of these different things, all of them in that book. Now I want to chat about sequels. I've already talked about how much I love Becky Chambers, and of course there are 2 more Becky Chambers books on the list of 5-star favorites. The first one is Record of a Spaceborne Few, and let me just, where's the synopsis? Okay, so basically the Wayfarer series is a fantastic, like, character-driven series that talks a lot about the intricacies of characters and about people and about, like, our desires for love, but also our desires to feel safe, all of these different things. But each of these books has a very different vibe / plot, I guess, but they all work together so well in the same universe. And Record of a Spaceborne Few, centuries after the last humans left Earth, the Exodus fleet is a living relic, a place many are from but few outsiders have seen. Humanity has finally been accepted into the galactic community, but it has to deal with, like, this Exodus fleet, which is basically the fleet that was going to leave Earth for the stars. And even though they've now been integrated into the galactic community, the Record of a Spaceborne Few really looks at people who stay and people who leave. So basically, Tessa chooses to stay home when her brother Ashby left for the stars. Ashby is a character I'm pretty sure is in another of the Wayfarer series, but has to question that decision when her position in the fleet is threatened. Kip, a reluctant young apprentice, itches for change. Sawyer, a lost and lonely newcomer, is just looking for a place to belong. And when a disaster rocks an already fragile community, I'm pretty sure there may be like a series of disappearances. Exodans who still call the fleet their home can no longer avoid the inescapable question, what is the purpose of a ship that has reached its destination? What I loved, kind of also a similar theme to Light at the Bottom of the World and To Be Taught Fortunate. Record of a Spaceborne Few really well dives and delves into this idea of, like, when do we stop, right? So as the question asks, right, do we now sort of assimilate pieces of our culture into alien communities? How do we retain pieces that we think are worth retaining, and what do we give up? Where do we choose to go? Like, where do our plans about, oh, you know, you do this and you do this, how does that change when you are integrated into the galactic community? All of these characters are dealing with this idea and this question in different ways, and it is so fascinating to watch this play out. It is basically feels like all of these characters who are interacting with each other, but all of these characters are really contemplating the idea of, like, the future of humanity, but also the future of their lives in a way that feels very much like related. It feels weird to be like, oh, my life is related to the future of humanity, but that's how it feels. It feels like the Exodus fleet is very much on a turning point, and these characters have to decide what they do with their own lives, but it seems emblematic of what the fleet is thinking about as well. And it's just, so good. I love this one so much. And I love the sequel to the Wayfarers series number 4, The Galaxy and the Ground Within, as well so much. This is the last Becky Chambers book on this list, but it is so fabulous. It is basically about the planet Gora. And on Gora is this long-haul spacers can stop at this pit stop. It's like a watering hole. They can stop at this pit stop, get fuel, transit permits, assorted supplies, and kind of hang out, relax as they wait before they go on. And so at the long-haul spacer pit stop called 5 Hop 1 Stop, there is an enterprising alien and her sometimes helpful child. They work there, and then they work there to kind of service all of these people and get them food and bedding and, like, fuel everything. But then there's a technological failure where no one is allowed to leave Gora, and, like, no transmissions are going to and from Gora. And so it's basically The Galaxy and the Ground Within, about these 3 strangers who throughout this technological failure are stranded on Gora, and specifically 5 Hop 1 Stop, all with different species, different aims, and also different tensions between them. And they have, and the 3 people are an exiled artist with an appointment to keep, a cargo runner at a personal crossroads, and a mysterious individual doing her best to help those on the fringes. In the Galaxy and the Ground Within, first of all, this one was like, oh, so cute. The mother-child relationship, or the parenthood-child relationship in the Galaxy and the Ground Within just like ripped my heart out in the best way. It was so sweet and so good, and I had all this nuance about like, are you too old? Are you growing too old? That kind of middle point in a relationship between a parent and a child where it's like, do you not need me anymore? You know, that growing space. Ah, it was so cute. But also the interactions between all three of these characters who are stuck on Korra and finding out each of their individual stories just felt like three little baby stories all in one. Each of these characters is so interesting, and it tells like a different picture of the story and a different picture of the world in such a beautiful way. I loved, oh my goodness, I loved all of these characters so much. Becky Chambers is just like, amazing at getting characters to be endearing and relatable, even though they're often aliens, and just like so heartwarming and emotional. I love the characters so much. The Galaxy and the Ground Within isn't necessarily like a book that has, I mean, there's action and intrigue because, you know, what's a technological failure? What's happening? What's the story behind these people? But it just is so richly character focused about these characters and about what they're going through, where they were before, where they're going after. It is amazing. If you're a fan of character-driven sci-fi, this is definitely for you. Oof. And the last one is A Desolation Called Peace. This is a sequel to A Memory Called Empire, which, oh my goodness. So basically in A Memory Called Empire, they have these imago technology things where you get like the memories of all these other people before you, everyone who had the imago. So they use it a lot for like positions where you need to know about, you know, the history of all the relationships that happened before, political things, okay? And in A Memory Called Empire, the main character gets the memories of the predecessor, but not all the memories are there. And then at first it's like, ooh, is this a glitch? And then you realize it's not a glitch, something funky is happening. And so through a series of events, the whole first book of A Memory Called Empire is basically trying to figure out, what are people hiding? Like, is the main character hiding things from themselves? What did the predecessor do? All of these different things and questions, and also being like, am I safe here? Can I trust anyone? Can I trust myself? That was fabulous. And so A Desolation Called Peace is the sequel. And basically, I can't tell you about what happens in the sequel, obviously, because it's major spoils for the second one. The main thing that I loved about Desolation Called Peace is if you loved Arrival, either the short story or the film, A Desolation Called Peace has to be on your TBR. If you love linguistics, if you love the idea of communicating with alien species, like first contact stories, this is for you. As I said, I can't really talk about other things that I liked about it because that is so spoiler territory. I'm really sorry. But definitely read it, because the characters and the world just really bloom in a Desolation Called Peace in a way that is so fascinating. And it just like, it is my go-to recommendation for people who love, as I said, first contact stories, because none of the events in A Desolation Called Peace would be even able to happen without the events of A Memory Called Empire and the character growth and the world growth, I guess, it happens there. So have to recommend that. I'm sorry that I can't give you more about like, oh, I really love when this character did this, or I really love this theme, because like, I will spoil it for you. I'm really sorry. It's not that I'm trying to, but like, it just ends up happening. You read 438 books and then you forget what are in the Goodreads summaries, and you're like, that's a mistake. Anyway, this has been a really long video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found some sci-fi reads that you have either really loved or on your TBR, or that you would like to share with me. Leave them below. I'm always willing to read more sci-fi. In general, I feel so good about these sci-fi reads. Like, I would wholeheartedly, without any reservations, recommend them to absolutely anyone based on what people are interested. So I just love when I can do that, and I had such a great sci-fi read. Like this, the favorite reads of 2021 are just nostalgically making me so happy, and I love it so much. Anyway, that's it. I'm sorry it's been so long. I'm gonna try to do better next time. It's a constant improvement process. Anyway, have a great day. I hope that you enjoy your reading, and I hope that you found some sci-fi reads that you want to read as well. Bye!